Thanks for checking in. This is part 2 of What's the Secret on Coffee with Tea. Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Tea. I'm still continuing our conversation with Mr. Quintin Dukes. We're talking about relationships, and thank you for joining us. So again,
yes,
it's a pleasure to see you, Mr. Quintin.
Thank you. It's nice to have
As
you
we
here.
were talking about the art of apologizing. So this is a really interesting subject, and I thought we spend a little time on it while we have it.
Yes.
So what is the art of apologizing to you, and how does that sort of like how we get into this conversation?
You want to know, and so and this has been something that I've worked on for myself. You know, because I'm not gonna lie, when I was maybe late teens, early 20s or whatever, I was so closed off, and so you would be prone to get the I'm sorry, the up and down, the I'm sorry.
And you're like, what is this?
Right, like what is all of that? And it's so crazy because my mother, she used to tell me over time, you need to check your demeanor. You know, and so at the time, it would just go straight over my head. I knew what she was talking about, but I didn't really want to listen. You know, and it wasn't until I got a little bit right. Listen, let's get comfortable.
Let's get comfortable.
It wasn't until I got a little bit older and I started to interact with other people, especially being in jobs where I'm dealing with the public all the time. When I was working in public health, you know, you start to really pick up on those things, and then you going from working with the community to sitting in the boardrooms with people, and you're able to see their stance and how they do things, their body language, and you're learning about emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm too comfortable.
Right, you real comfortable. But it's okay though. This is a laid back conversation. But we want those gems that's within this laid back conversation. And it's just what I started to realize is that there's a lot of people who don't check in with self like that. I call it your internal inventory. It's your emotional inventory, how you carry yourself, how you react with other people, or interact with other people, and how you react to certain conflicts and how you handle that. And when it came to apologizing, I'll say what has really been valuable to me is when the person apologizes, they're like, you know what, I'm really sorry. And they'll be like, I'm sorry for doing X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Because when you hit it like that, that shows me that you know exactly what you did.
Right.
And it's not me pointing the finger, like, I'm not sitting there like this waiting for you to give me the answer, and then as soon as you give it to me, I'm like, yep, that's right. You shouldn't have did that.
There are people who do that.
And there are people who do that. I just know for me, that's not my, intent behind it when having that expectation. Because for me, I see the worth in understanding when you show me that you understand what it is that you have done to kind of like have this situation spin out of control. And it's not always the other person, because I can probably hear some people now, they're like, before they even view it, they'll be like, well, what was your role in the situation? Right. Listen, I can be completely transparent and understand when I did wrong. And here's the thing, I don't request that of a person and me not do it for myself.
Right. So we talked about that in the last episode.
Right. Yeah. So if I'm in the wrong, you know what I mean? No need to write me a ticket. No need to write me a ticket at all. I'm able to implement the same thing. I will say, if I genuinely feel it, if I genuinely feel like, okay, I done did something wrong, I done messed up. Like how I said before, my accountability partners, they call me out about something, and I'm sitting in the car and I'm like, you know what, that person really had a point. Okay, so Quintin, what is it that you're going to do? All right, well, I'm going to either try to have a face-to-face conversation. I feel as though face-to-face conversations are the best. You know what I mean? If you can't, over the phone, text message to me should be the last.
Yeah.
That should be the last resort, because it's so much, it's open to interpretation. And you can read a text message, and based on the way that you're feeling, your interpretation is going to come from your point of view.
Oh, amen.
You know what
Say
I mean?
that again.
Okay. when you get a text message or an email or what have you, the way that you take it in and you receive it is going to come from your point of view. Meaning that if you are having a bad day and the person says something and you might think like, oh, you really trying to be funny. You really trying to be funny, when the person wasn't even trying to be funny. They weren't trying to be, facetious or anything like that. They really were coming from a genuine place. Like you said before, and I think it's a good practice, take a step away, cool your jets. Cool your jets. Be able to come with a clear lens and to be able to say, okay, let me read this. How should I receive it? And if you still have a little bit of confusion, call the person and ask.
Call them or text back and say, can you clarify this?
Right, or what did you mean by that? I'm just a bit unclear. It's not landing properly when I'm reading it. Like, can you just help me out? Just help me out. So.
Yeah, so I think and that I think comes with, you say, the art of apologizing, but it's the art of communication, because again, sometimes you're going to have those hard conversations.
Right.
And the thing is like, figure out when is a good approach, and are you in a good mindset to have it, because sometimes we jump right in there looking for answers, and you're looking for answers to for them to apologize, but to them they're like, I don't think I did anything wrong.
Right.
So sometimes I think the art of stepping back and evaluating the situation, what did I bring to the table that maybe I could have done differently?
Right. Right.
And I think that's really helped in the communication, because you asked me, like, how has it been with the communication with me and my husband? It's like, and I have to realize, and like I said, the self-evaluation was, Tonya, you're not perfect.
Right.
Don't act like you are. You have your moments.
None of us are perfect.
You can be very difficult.
Right.
And I acknowledge that, and I accept that, because, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because sometimes it won't get you to where you need to are if you got rid of that personality. So it's a bad thing. But sometimes she doesn't need to rear her ugly head up at that moment.
Right. You just understand it's not productive.
Right.
That's what it is. You just understand. And you want to know the one thing that kind of popped out to me while you were sitting here and you were talking is, like, there's a difference between having a stagnant mindset versus a growth mindset. And I think you've transitioned to having a growth mindset.
Oh, yeah.
You don't look at like people who have a stagnant mindset. Have you ever been around those people who are just so negative?
Oh, yeah.
All the time. You be sitting there like, oh, let's go to the store. Child, why you want to go to the store? I don't got no money to spend. You ain't got no money. And instead of just saying, oh, it's an outing. Okay, let's go and enjoy ourselves. Let's see what we're going to get at the store. Two totally different things. Two totally different outlooks. We'll just say that.
Yeah, and you know what? That's another thing that came. A lot of my growth, my transformation began when I started reading, for one, and then, like I said, getting quiet, reflecting on some of the stuff. And quiet walks in the park, because I remember having that conversation in myself, and I was thinking, people can come to the park. Two people can walk the path all day long, walk around the park, but you're going to have two different perspectives of what they saw at the park, no matter what.
Right.
And I thought, that's the same thing in life, because you can have the same relationship, but you can go through the whole relationship, but somebody's going to have a whole different perspective of the relationship. You thought, oh, everything's going great. The other person's like, I can't stand him.
Right.
You're like,
or I don't want to go home.
Or and then you're like, oh my God, what happened to our relationship? It's because you, for one, maybe didn't really pick up on the vibe of the other person, or you saw the red flags and ignored them. We do that.
Can you say that one more time? We
ignored the red flags. You know in your gut that something's just not right.
You know it.
Yet you still try to force it and make it fit. As my friend would say, you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole.
And it just doesn't work. It don't work. It doesn't work.
So sometimes you have to stop and say, am I trying to force this? Or is this really, where it needs to go, because sometimes, we've all heard the phrase, some people, are here for a reason, some people are for a season. And you have to know the difference, and I think another thing reading in the book too that I read was, people will come on a path, you're going to walk together, but paths go so long, and at some point the path will split. It doesn't, sometimes that person may have to go their own path, and sometimes they can go with you, but you just know that they're here for, a time, a lesson, a reason for you to know, and then everybody, go. And then I think it was, I want to say it, I might be wrong, I think it was Brene Brown said it, thank you for sharing your journey with me. If they part, because you have to be thankful for the fact that they were here for something for you. And the only time you really understand it is when you stop and reflect. And I know I feel like I'm talking and I'm preaching right now, so I apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Listen, you are at the podium right now. This is valuable. This is a valuable conversation.
Being a two-time failed, or I would not say failed.
That's what I was going to say.
Two-time divorcee, I learned by reflecting that I am thankful for the fact that they were in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it back then at the time because, I was in a different headspace back then. But when I did stop and reflect, I did call both of them, and I had a conversation, and I did apologize to the both of them, and I wouldn't say, if you looked at when the relationship ended, I would have blamed them as I played the victim card when the divorces went through. I played I got cheated on. How could they do that to me?
How could you do such a thing?
What were you thinking? But 10 years goes by, you're thinking to myself, okay, I wasn't the kind of person who cut that crap off in the beginning. Because well, for one, and I didn't respect myself as a woman enough to, if I knew the tendencies there.
Can you say that one more time?
I didn't respect myself enough. When I knew that crap happened the first time, I should have cut it off. For me, because I would say I should have cut off. Let me change that phrase. If I valued myself enough, I would have cut it off. Because I would have allowed it to
listen, you are dropping gems today.
Because
that
it comes
is very
with
important.
reflection. And when I apologized to them, and it, like I said, one relationship, we did get physical with each other, and it didn't go well, and I was angry. I was very angry. He said some nasty words, but when it came to the apologizing, it wasn't really for him. Well, it was for me, but because we had our son, and I thought it affected my relationship with his father, because I think he respected the fact that mom and dad we weren't talking together. But I also think it hindered him having a better relationship from his dad because he didn't feel comfortable enough having a communication. So it wasn't that he was a bad father. He was a good father.
Right.
The relationship just didn't work at the time. So I took the initiative to apologize to him for not being the kind of woman I would have liked myself to have been back then, stronger. And so that changed the whole ball game of our relationship. He ended up driving up to see, because he lived in Louisiana at the time. We were living in Cincinnati. He drove all the way up, spent the weekend with his son, and now they have a much better relationship. But it ended up over the fact that, I apologized. First of all, I started with myself. I had to have that, who do you think you're holier than thou then? You brought some stuff to the table.
Right, because we all do. We all bring our stuff
to the table.
Our baggage to the table,
And so once I learned to apologize with myself or forgive myself, as Yella Van Zandt would say, I did the work of myself. I was able to take it to him and apologize. And surprisingly, I got the apology I was expecting years ago. I got it at that time. Because he was like, and then when we talked about our son, he's like, I would never come in to try to take your son. You're a good mom. And he says, I'm sorry that, the relationship ended the way it did. And I was like,
you weren't expecting that.
No.
You weren't expecting that.
No. And so I ended up writing a blog about communication. So I wrote a blog, and I titled it "The Art of Forgiveness." So it was funny how you brought that up.
Right.
There is a healing. For one, when you're able to forgive yourself, it always begins with yourself.
Right. And
then two, then you can, as you say, your cup runs over. I have enough generosity for myself. I can bless it to others.
Exactly. So, you can't help somebody else if you can't help yourself.
Right, because you're like pouring from an empty cup.
Exactly. And another thing that kind of stuck out to me as you were talking was gratitude.
Who's being interviewed here?
I don't know. We kind of switch hats a little bit, It's just that listening ear that I have, sometimes. Right. It's the art, the being able to implement gratitude.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that is very important as well, to be able to say, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for what it is that I went through. It wasn't pretty when I was going through it. Okay,
no.
don't get that twisted.
No.
But you know what I mean? Like, it stressed me out. But at the end of it, I can see the value. Yeah. I think that's what it is. And in healthcare, they had this big buzzword, which was quality. Okay. And the thing of it was that people had a hard time quantifying quality because it's not anything that you hand out to somebody, and it's always based on how you perceive it.
Right.
But one part of that equation that they came up with was value.
Okay.
So in order for you to have a certain perceived amount of quality, you had to have some type of value in it in order to get to quality.
Right.
So, you know, if you think about it like that, you know what I mean? If you have that value, there's some quality there, whether it be the quality of the relationship, the quality of the outcome, or what have you. But like you said, it all starts with you. You have to find those elements within yourself. You have to give that to yourself, you know, and like you said, it comes across when you are, you know, taking long walks, when you're reflecting. Another thing that I wanted to say was, be kinder to yourself.
Oh yeah.
When you're talking to yourself, because we could be so critical.
That's a whole other conversation.
It's a whole other conversation, and we can just kind of like hit the surface of it. You know, it's like what I've realized is that so many people are so critical.
Oh yeah.
They're so critical of not just the other person, but for themselves. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's not. I understand it is hitting you hard, and that's how you see it, and that's how you feel. But just breathe.
You know. And I always go back to the books. The books were really life-changing for me. And I know one of the books made me stop and think and say, the way you talk to yourself, would you talk to a friend that way?
Come on.
And sometimes when I used to, and it always comes back to awareness, that self-awareness, and stop and reflect, because you always have an inner dialogue in here. And it's either talking trash to you or he's lifting you up. So sometimes when I used to say things like, I would say something to you. So, you know, hey, Quintin, it was a great day. And then I come back, and in my head, be like, that was stupid. Why would you say something like that? You have to listen to that head trash in that person in your talk, because if he's talking trash to you, what's coming in here is coming out your mouth. Right. And that's a lot of things I didn't realize, because thought happens twice. It happens here first, and then it comes out in your mouth. So when people say, oh, I didn't mean to say it. No, because you did, because it's been marinating in your head first before you came out and said it.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people don't. I think we might have lost our camera, but that's okay, because our phone's still going.
Right, it's like that.
But yeah, I think a lot of people miss that fact, because it is here first. You don't say here until you've had it in here first. So when people say, "Oh, I didn't mean to say," yeah, you did.
You did. You didn't think
you
before you said it.
That's
what. That's always been my other. It's just like, you know, and I don't mean to kind of like dovetail it a little bit, but of course what you see going on now, you know, with race relations, and you have someone who says something or does something, and then they want to go and issue an apology, and it's so quick, and you're just like, it's not the fact that we don't value your apology, it's the mere fact that you didn't think before you act. Right. So anything that you did after that point is null and void. I don't think there's any way for you to come back from it, or we're gonna have to take some time. We're gonna be like, you know what, we're gonna take this to the committee before we come back from this. And it's the same thing in relationships.
It's I think it all comes down to self-talk. It carries across in all relationships. It's your personal relationships, your relationships with yourself, your kids, because sometimes how you come off with your kids, it all comes into your self-talk. And if you start treating yourself better, you can learn to treat everybody else a lot better. Like, for example, this is one thing I learned about dealing with my son, because he just graduated 2 years ago. So I had to deal, when I was going through my transformation of myself, I'm dealing with a high schooler, and he was trying my patience at times. I mean, he wasn't a bad kid, but I remember this one time he did fail. He failed his senior year. And me being a mom, raising him compared to my girls at the time was a lot different. So when he failed, my normal motherly instinct would have been like, go off the deep end. You know, you're grounded for this, you're grounded for that. And I was like, you know, but then like I said, wait a minute, it's like, there's consequences to your actions. So when I talked to him as a different level, because it's like, for one, I can't solve your problem for you. I can't do your math issue. I can't do whatever you fail, right? So when we had this conversation, I remembered I already graduated high school. So the point is not me to be right. I can still be mom, and I can still get the message right. So what I had a conversation with him was, I graduated. You know, the whole point is, how are you going to figure out how you're going to do it now?
Right.
So it made him more responsible, but yeah, I respected him enough as a young man to come up with his own consequences, because once he left my house, that's it.
That's
you know,
it.
He's a young man, and if I'm not setting up the tools for him to know how to communicate and figure out in his own head how to work things out, I'm continuing the cycle.
You're gonna handicap.
So yeah, what I learned in the relationship, and it goes across the board. Co-workers, you can treat them a lot different. Spouses, a lot. It all begins with how you treat yourself.
Right.
Treat yourself right, everything else will fall into place.
You start to see your life just change a little bit.
Dramatically.
Right. And I think the more important thing too is just to be able to cultivate that positivity, because you talked about it. It's you don't want that internal talk going on, because that leads to self-sabotage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you don't want that. You don't want that at all.
You sabotage just about anything. Anything that starts going good, that head trash comes in. And I think a lot of people don't realize. I think changing the words really changed, but I formed 3 words, and I try to focus. A couple years ago was I had a BMW. Those were my letters, and it doesn't stand for the car. It used to, but not now. So when I had an accident, lost a car, the BMW started being bold, motivated, and worthy, and those lived for my life. So I'm bold.
I like that.
Be bold. Stay motivated, and know that you're worthy of all the good that God has for you.
Right.
Some people say God, universe, was the same thing. But bold, motivated, and you can find 3 words that suit you and live that life by, and then that head trash starts to dissipate, because you can't, as they say, you can't serve 2 masters. That identity becomes who you are. So it's either, you know, you're going to be enthusiastic and happy and go loving person, or you're going to be that, you know, nasty, angry person. But it's that identity. Which one do you identify? Which one are you feeding? As they say, that wolf with it. Which one are you feeding? That negative one, or are you going to feed that positive one?
I was going to say, you're getting real deep right now.
I know it's a lot deep, so we're going to get out of that one.
You're getting deep, because I just want to say this one thing, because you lightly touched on your self-concept and who you perceive yourself to be.
Oh yeah.
And see, the thing of it is,
I'm still building on it though.
Oh yeah, we're all works in progress, most definitely. But I think the craziest thing is that you want to know where the tension starts.
What's that?
Is that when you perceive yourself one way, but then other people start to perceive you totally different.
Oh yeah.
That's where one of the
the friction comes in there.
That's what that is, and so that creates a whole array of other issues as well. And those are things that people really don't talk about. They don't even consider that. They don't even sit back and see, well, this is how I perceive myself, but maybe my partner perceives me as something totally different. Like, I've sat there and I've listened to certain clients, and they be like, I just don't understand how they think that I am that kind of person. And then you sit there and you listen to them. You can see by word choice, the way they form their ideas, their perspective on life, how they were raised, you know what I mean, their attachment styles, all these things wrapped up into one. And you're kind of like sitting there, and of course you don't want to be rude about it, but you're like,
that's you.
That's you right there.
You.
That's you right there. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of like, okay, so, and I know it takes a, because when we talked about it in the first episode, it's like this initial shock. You know what I mean? Of like, is this who I really am? Is this how people really perceive me? But here's the thing, you can change it.
Yeah. That's the thing. You can change it.
You can change, like, you can legitimately change it, and it's not you trying to be somebody that you're not. You can say there's core parts of you that are never going to change, and that's fine. The issue here is that those parts that are problematic, if they're parts that are always going to be forever parts of you, what you need to do is you need to sit with yourself and figure out, okay, well, I know that this is a trigger for me, and I know, and this is just an example that comes across, and I know I do this sometimes, so I'll be transparent, is that one thing that I learned about myself is that if someone triggers me the right way, and I think this is this New York thing too, is that I'm quick to go for the jugular.
Right.
is we real quick to do that. We real quick because a lot of I mean we do get that, you know, that idea. People get that idea or that impression that oh, people from New York, they're rude, they're nasty, and it's not even specific to New York City, okay? Because I'm from Rochester, New York. We go straight for the jugular, and as I got older, and I still struggle with it sometimes now, I have to sometimes say Quintin, and Quintin says what? It's not that serious.
Oh,
it's not that serious. It's not that serious. Don't your pitchfork back there. Put it back. Put it back.
That reminds me. I had a conversation with a 3-year-old, and we were in the car. And if you can learn to talk to a 3-year-old, you can talk to just about anybody.
That's it.
And sometimes, as we mentioned it, that when we're having that temper tantrum, that's who's rearing his little head up. Is that 3-year-old, that 5-year-old who didn't get their way. So when I get and I laugh sometimes because when I don't get my way, and I know I'm not getting my way, it's because I got upset, and it comes down to, and I have to stop and ask myself, what is it that you want?
Right.
Because there's something that you're not getting, and that's causing you to get mad. And I realized it's not getting my way or not getting control or something like that. So back to the 3-year-old. Had a conversation. We were in the car trying to tell him where we were going to go. We're going to go eat some lunch or whatever. She didn't like the idea of where we're going to go. So I kept telling her. Now I'm grandma mode, trying to tell her where we're going to go. Where we're going to go, you're going to do. And she's in the backyard. Grandma, it's not that serious. Is this a 3-year-old telling me this? Yeah. So when you told me, in the back of your mind, when you're getting mad and pouty and getting upset with something, that 3-year-old mind, is it really that serious?
Is it really that serious? And sometimes it's not.
It's really not. It's like asking yourself, what is it that I want, and why am I having this? I always have, why am I having this temper tantrum?
I mean, and that's a valid question. That is a valid and productive question. I'm just like, so why am I in this disposition? Like why am I feeling this way? Like why? What is it? What's the issue? And sometimes you have to do that, and you touched on it earlier. Sometimes it's not productive to have that conversation with that person right then and there. It's okay to step back and go and ask yourself these questions. And then when you're ready, when the defense is down, you're not ready to go for the jugular, you put your pitchfork away, then that's when you can reconvene and be able to have that conversation. But if you realize it's going to go totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Because the other person's not on the defense, you're not on the defense, you're relaxed, you're chill, you're like, okay, let's be able to have this conversation.
Let's have an adult conversation.
There you go. Adult conversation. Bring a little wine if you want to. Okay, have a little bit of cognac and conversations if that's what it is that you want to do. That's going to help facilitate the positivity. I just think the biggest thing is that be present in the moment.
Oh, yeah.
Be present in the moment.
Put the cell phones down.
Say it again.
Put the cell phones away and having a conversation.
Have the conversation. Make it productive. Be accountable for whatever you need to be accountable to and for. And be solutions oriented. That's the one thing. Ooh. Be solutions oriented.
This is another military term we learned.
Go ahead, break it down.
The military, they tell us this. If you're not bringing a solution, you're part of the problem.
Oh, say it again. I feel like that belongs on a shirt somewhere. Say it again.
If you're not bringing a solution, you're part of the problem.
Exactly. And that's the thing that people fail to realize. It's just like, okay, because you can have several discussions and conversations. Yeah. Listen, at one point in time in my life, I used to be the conversation king. Okay, I used to be like, we need to sit down and have a conversation. And I know where I got it from. I got it from my dad. Because he always wanted to have a conversation. I need to sit down and have a conversation. Because you're thinking that you're getting clarity, but it gets to a point where you reach that ceiling. There's no more clarity to get. Right. Okay? Like how they say, it's either you get to a point where...
Well, I'm not going to give you the other military term.
Okay. Well, it might still come around about what I'm about to say. It gets to a point where either you have to shit or get off the pot.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
See, I'm reading your mind. That's what it is. It gets to a point where you have to either shit or get off the pot, okay?
Right.
And you have to go ahead and be like, okay, so how are we going to move forward? Right. And be able to strategize this. And this is something that I don't think I spoke about it on this podcast, but I was able to speak to it on another one. It's just like, in the solution, when both parties come up with, okay, this is your role within the solution, this is going to be my role in the solution, own it. Own your task.
Own it.
Own your task and be accountable, okay? Own it and be accountable, because then when you figure that out, it's just kind of like how they do on the sports teams. You figure it out and you're just like, break. And then you move to implementation. And you want to see how well this solution is going to be implemented, and to be able to see if you're going to be able to reap the fruits of your labor. That's what that is. And that's what a lot of people don't talk about. They don't even focus on that.
So, Mr. Quinn, I was trying to grab the time before.
Oh, did we go past
we got our 30 minutes, and like I said, I want to wrap it up and say it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always fun.
Always fun. Remember, as we close out, feedback is always welcome. Email us if you have any show ideas or guest ideas you'd like to see. Links will always be posted in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. And remember, take things in stride, go with the flow, and create your own path. And again, thank you for joining us here on Coffee with Tea. Question of the day. What was one of your favorite takeaways from today's show? Post your answers in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.